Great. Hey, welcome back to Facts at Five. This is Michael Clark here at the LTV Studios in Wayne-Scott, New York, with our Friday guest, Town Supervisor Peter Van Scoyoc. Welcome, Peter.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning. And normally on Facts at Five, we talk about what's going on locally, but this week, as you know, has been anything but normal nationwide. And I think it will be of interest to our audience to get your take on what the press is labeling the mayhem, one of the many labels, mayhem at the Capitol. But before I do, I just want to inform our folks that we're actually taping this on Thursday, so it's fresh in my mind, and I'm sure fresh in yours, Peter. And I think a good way to start off, the chairman of the East Hampton Town Republican Committee, Manny Villar, who you know, released a written statement on the Washington mayhem, and he said. And I read this morning in the East Hampton Star printout. After 4 years of investigation and vicious persecution of fabricated, disproven allegations of President Trump, the American people deserve and should have a thorough investigation of the many reported irregularities and possible criminal activities in several states. We cannot allow several bad actors in today's protest that may or may not have been part of the protest detract from the need to thoroughly investigate systematic voter fraud. Never in our lifetime did we ever imagine we would be seeing what is playing in our nation's capital today. I just wanted to throw that out there, Peter, to see if you had any comment from your neck of the woods.
Well, I'm troubled by that statement from Manny Villar, first of all, because there's been a systematic degradation of our democratic institutions and misinformation. The fact that the President of the United States has continued not to concede the election and peacefully transfer power, and has in fact inflamed and incited his followers to storm the Capitol, resulting in the mayhem and the seditious acts of yesterday is unbelievable. It's unfathomable. I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and I know Manny Villar did too. It's a police officer for New York State Park Police. So, to try and say, that somehow this election was stolen went after, 60 different court cases, no court found any credible evidence of widespread voter fraud or anything that would have changed the outcome of the election. Each of the states in the United States under the Constitution have certified electors in favor of Joe Biden as the president and Kamala Harris. And Congress's job yesterday was to, in fact, just count, to do a roll call count, a count of the electors selected by each state. It is up to the states to certify those electors. And they did so. In some cases where they were contested, they did multiple hand recounts, again, confirming the outcome of the election. Now, the election was extremely close. And then we saw the runoff in Georgia. That was extremely close. It shows just how divided our country is. And our country is so much more divided right now than we were 4 years ago. And, I think all blame aside, everybody should just take a deep breath, go to the library or go online, get a copy of the Declaration of Independence, get a copy of the US Constitution, and sit quietly and read both those documents to understand just what our democracy is based on. Those eloquent words written well over 200 years ago ring so true today. And I think when people read them, take a breath, read them, then they'll understand that it's up to them to demand of their government officials to uphold the Constitution and to represent them, not those elected officials' own self-interest, for the betterment of the entire country. So, I think that's really where we are right now. I'm incredibly dismayed at the events that occurred yesterday. I do think that things will get better. I think everybody just needs to calm down, stay calm, keep it together. We can get through this. We can get through this pandemic, but it's really going to require us setting aside personal differences and working together for the common good, for everybody's common good. We got to stop fighting with each other. I put a post on Facebook today just talking about my dismay of the events yesterday. And I had one respondent who just went off. And it occurred to me that, this person probably doesn't have a background in civics and understand how their government is supposed to work and represent them. And I think if they understood that and got involved to ensure that their representatives heard their voices, that we'd be in a much better place right now.
Yeah, and well said, Peter. I think we mentioned the last time we spoke that, that 2020 for me anyway was a year of learning. I learned so much that I didn't know about the our medical system or the medical system and how it works and how it operates. And I learned so much about the government system and how it operates and things I didn't know. I mean, frankly, I didn't know about the 25th Amendment or, Congress having to say that, yeah, the electoral votes are all good and those kind of things. I was absent that day in school. I didn't pay attention or something, but, you learn those things and Black Lives Matter too, learning all about that. And, it was an interesting, it was just an interesting year for that, and I was hoping that 2021 was going to be a year, and it still can be the year that we take those lessons learned and put what we learned to good use, and moving forward in a positive way. And hopefully we've hit the low point, and now we're going to head back up, and I fully believe that we will. An interesting side note to yesterday's thing, it was just amazing to me that not to get off on a discussion about this, but how unprepared they seemed for this, and yet we're so prepared for the Black Lives Matter demonstrations during the summer, in Washington. It was, I think it was a very stark difference with people coming at, in and out of, the spaces where they're allowed to be. And I just thought that was glaring as well in looking at the whole thing. And unfortunately, I think somebody is going to take the hit for this for, at the Capitol Police or something like that in terms of not being prepared. And that's unfortunate because there's red tapes and politics in there somewhere, I can assure you, I would think.
Right. Well, I think there certainly should be and probably will be a full investigation of how that was allowed to happen. These are the hallowed halls of our democracy. And, basically what was attempted yesterday was a coup of the Constitution. It was an act that was meant to disrupt the certification of the vote of the President of the United States. Counting of the electoral votes. That was the duty of Congress, and they were in the process of doing it when these people stormed in, this rabble mob, and disrupted that process. That is an act of sedition and treason, in my opinion. There's no excuse for that. We cannot stand for that. That being said, you could see in the videos the efforts of many valiant law enforcement people trying to protect Capitol and those who were within those halls. And, to their credit, they did the best they could. You could see how overwhelmed they were. The real question is, why wasn't there adequate resources put in place? And that investigation will go on. But I don't want to, ignore the fact that these people were put in a position where, their lives, as well as those of Congress, were, at risk. And, the fact that there was not more bloodshed, honestly, is a credit to them.
Oh, sure, totally. I hope I didn't come across like I was taking a shot at the people that.
No, I know you weren't, but I just think I want people to remember that when they have the discussion of why resources weren't allocated, those who were there were valiant in their efforts. So
yeah, I can't imagine how frightening that must have been. Sitting in the House or in the Senate and just hearing what's going on and glass breaking and guns drawn and I just can't imagine.
The four former presidents speaking out in a united front about this, seeing the Joint Chiefs of Staff, former, generals, all speaking out against this. And there had been warnings from them in an op-ed piece ahead of yesterday's events. because they were concerned about this.
Right.
It is reassuring to see, and some of the senators who originally were going to challenge the counting of the vote, I think saw because it's politically expedient now to realize that, wait, we got to keep this thing together, otherwise we're out of jobs. It's
Right.
really about job preservation for some of them. Those who are up for re-election are worried about the Trump base not supporting them if they don't act this way. And then those who are not, realizing that, well, we got to keep the sanctity of our democracy intact.
Yep, absolutely. And meanwhile, the pandemic rages on, in the midst of all this.
Right.
That kind of got the back page for today.
Honestly, that's one of the things that's kind of infuriating. If as much effort and focus had been committed to ending the pandemic, has been wasted on trying to challenge the results of the election, we'd be in a better place.
Sure.
East Hampton, we've taken it upon ourselves to secure testing because the county hasn't been able to do it, or hasn't been willing to do it due to resources. The federal government hasn't stepped in with a unified plan. They basically dropped it off on the states. We started out as a confederation of states after the Revolutionary War ended. There was a 6-year period there after the end of the war, while the United States was trying to figure out how to best put together our democracy. And, at the end of that 6 years, the ratification of our U.S. Constitution took place, and we had our first president, who was George Washington, who, after 8 years, ceded peacefully the transition of power to his vice president, Adams. So, we have a long history of peaceful transition, and this is the first instance in which peaceful transition of power has not occurred. And we have to take notice. We have to protect our democracy at all costs, and not the, expedience of the political movement, that is upon some. So, this is a time for all Americans to take a deep breath, read the Constitution, read the Declaration of Independence, become inspired to become involved with your government at the local basis, at the national level, at the state level, county level. Get involved and make sure that you elect people who are going to uphold your rights and represent you well.
Well, that's you're right on the money there, Peter. And as far as local government goes, and you touched on this a little bit, we have about a minute left. Maybe you could just give us an update. You guys were able to secure a new testing site at Town Hall that opened yesterday, and my appointment's tomorrow morning at 8, so 8:10 actually. But
I will recommend that anybody who is looking forward to getting testing to sign up for an appointment. They are taking drive-ups, but you may be frustrated and wait for quite some time to be seen. So I encourage you to call ahead or email ahead. Testbeforeyougo.com is the site. You can log in, set up your appointment. They take credit card payments. So we had 125 people tested yesterday.
Wow.
One day. That's the most anybody has been tested in East Hampton in a single day, I believe, except perhaps when they were testing school kids as part of the county. I think they did 203 in a day or something like that.
Wow.
This testing is going to continue 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we're also talking about setting up another site in town, preferably in Montauk, very similar to this one. So we've seen a huge, demand initially. And when I drove in first thing this morning, there was already a pretty significant line of people waiting. Most were in the appointment line, but there were some drive-ups.
Great. Well, I'll let you know how I make out tomorrow. And thank you to you and your team for setting that up. I know David was working pretty hard, and I'm sure lots of others. And Ann.
Yeah, David Lee, I'm glad you pointed that out. We've been talking about this for some time, and David Lease has taken up he's the boots on the ground getting this done. He's done a great job turning it around very quickly. Also, I'll mention that Dr. George Dempsey has expanded testing in his practice to those outside of his practice. So you don't have to be a patient of his. You can call his office. I know he's expanded his testing here locally, and that's just right next door also. But again, I want to try and get a testing site up and running in Montauk. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks, within a couple of weeks.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much. We're going to have to run, but you have yourself a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week, same time.
Thanks so much, Michael. Stay safe and be well. Stay safe and be well, everyone.